My guest today is one of my first ever clients. He's the CEO of Alta, which is a technology company in the gym, martial arts and combat space. I'm sure he'll tell us about that. And I'm so proud of this, they are listed on the freaking New York Stock Exchange. Today I'm proud to call him a friend. Welcome to the show, Nick Langton.
Moby, it's great to be here, mate. We've talked about doing this for a while.
For a long time. And maybe we can, I don't know if you're coming up with a podcast, maybe we can give it a bit of a plug later, but I'm glad at least you're here.
Well, I think us talking about doing this podcast together came off the back of me ringing you, and I always love your content, and I thought, I've got to get into the podcast space, and one of my investors, Mark Burris, obviously Mark's got an amazing few podcasts that I've been on before, and I've just seen the content that you've produced, and I've just found it's just a really intimate way to communicate with a range of audiences, potential customers, people who've heard about the business, maybe people invested in the business,
Absolutely.
And those sorts of things. So yeah, I'm really grateful.
Oh, it shoots many barrels, because this is an opportunity for me and for our listeners to learn about yourself, the business, scale, growth, and a whole bunch of topics that I can't wait to get into. But we're just having conversation and everyone's benefiting. But before I ask my first question, I'm going to just sort of surprise yourself with
your medal.
My medal. So if you're watching the video, you'll see this. If you're listening, you won't see it. But this is my Wimp to Warrior medal from my amateur MMA competition from 2019. But as I ask, I'm going to leave this on just for a moment while I ask you this question. I want you to, and this is also a 2-for-1, explain what you guys actually do. Talk to me about the pivot evolution of the business. And what I mean by that, going from a very decent business that was focused on an amateur MMA program to now essentially a technology company, because that's a great pivot, and I'd love for you to tell the story.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think if we kind of go back to square one and reflect on where the business was, I got involved very early stage, supported the original creator of the Wimp to Warrior concept. I was his first investor, put cash into the business, and with an opportunity that for me, while I was still in my corporate career, to do something that was a bit of a passion project. I think I always had a view that I'm not someone.
And before you go deep into it, really quickly, because it's still a big core part of the business, what was the Wimp to Warrior program and what components of it are still there? Yeah.
So the program was a 20-week amateur MMA fight camp taught by amazing coaches with a very detailed syllabus, and people would, at the conclusion of their 20 weeks of training, 100 sessions over 20 weeks, they'd have the opportunity to elect to compete in an amateur MMA bout. And what was always, fascinating was that everyone who's done the training, their greatest fear is not competing, like an opponent getting injured or they get an injury late in the program. By the time people have done 20 weeks of training, the thing they most want to do is experience that bucket list moment, which you did, which I've done, which now my two 19-year-old sons have done, which is to walk out in front of a room of, 1,000 people and get into the cage and compete in sanctioned amateur mixed martial arts. And it's as you know, it's a life-changing experience. And the business always had a view that the program was unique and beautifully designed as the best on-ramp. If you really wanted to commence martial arts and do something significant, like a real bucket list experience, to do the program was a wonderful way to do that. And early on, it got recognition from key people around the world, and John Kavanagh started running it in his famous
McGregor's coach.
Connor's coach, started running it in SBG, and over the years, some very famous coaches, Eugene Behrman, who runs City Kickboxing in Auckland, where Israel Adesanya
he promoted it too. Remember, he did a video.
Yeah.
Great
So
endorsement.
we've had incredible recognition of the program and continued. I think the numbers are like well over 10,000 people have had their first amateur MMA contest as a consequence of doing the program. But what from me, when we built it up at the start, it was always about, okay, we're going to license a gym, right? We don't want to own gyms. We want to be, ultimately we want to focus on brand and IP, and we want to bring customers to the gym. So we'll license the gym, make sure the gym has got great coaches who can teach the program. We'll bring them customers, and that's where RedPandas got involved. Very early on, you guys with all your marketing skills and Facebook ads was a lot more productive and very different back in the day. And our value proposition to the small business owners, the family businesses that own mixed martial arts academies, all over Australia, all over the world, in fact, was we'll give you a cohort of new customers and you can nurse them for 20 weeks. And at the end of it, they're going to want to be, continue to be members of the gym. And so, I still remember when I first met you all your training had been boxing, and now you've been training jiu-jitsu for years. You've been promoted through belts. You family train. You hadn't done that.
It's a whole journey.
But you hadn't done that when you started the program.
No, it all goes back to that program that I did. Yeah.
So, but when we were doing that from the very start, in my mind's eye, it was always about that I wanted to aggregate, the onboarding of these new customers through our own payments gateway. And we wanted to have sort of sovereignty over the customer data and payments. Number one, because if we're collecting the payments, the gym doesn't have to do it. And number two, because that was obviously the most valuable way for us to grow our revenues and retain our shares. So even in the very early days, it was still about having our own payments gateway, having our own brand and marketing systems, and saying we think that we can, as we grow our technology, we can ultimately, and it's a mission of ours today, to get 700 million fans of mixed martial arts turn them into participants at a fitness and hobbyist level, right? And so with that in mind, there's a really attractive cohort that we want to distribute to our underlying gym partners. And again, these are small businesses.
Yeah.
So that's a really exciting problem to help solve. And I often say a really easy way to think about it is if you think about the digital revolution in restaurants. Okay, so restaurants are overwhelmingly, town by town, city by city, they're family-owned businesses. Okay? But you think about how the consumer experience of restaurants has become really homogenized through DoorDash, Uber Eats, ratings on Yelp, bookings through Open Table or Seven Rooms. So as a customer, through these smartphones we all have these days, our ability to find, locate and access the inventory in restaurants, whether it's a booking or whether it's takeaway food, is easier than it's ever been. And that ultimately leads to growth of the sector. So what we want to do is go, okay, there's hundreds of thousands, arguably millions of martial arts academies around the world. They're small businesses. We know there's 700 million fans of mixed martial arts. When you read, and that's just fans of the UFC. So we know the fan base is enormous globally and it's growing, incredibly vibrant. And so what we want to do is match that fan base with the opportunity to participate and train in gym. Of course, we've got some online elements too, which is kind of designed to supplement training and make the on-ramp a little bit easier. But ultimately, that's the problem we're looking to solve. And so even though the business appears to have changed a lot, at the core of what we're doing, sitting at 38,000 feet, that's what I was always wanting to do.
What I remember we caught up about this yesterday. What really struck me is, and I think this is a really good lesson for founders, because like most people, unless you're starting a lifestyle type of business and you're a dude who wants to surf and have enough business just to survive for the week. Most of us are not like that.
Yeah.
Most founders and CEOs I speak to, they have either an exit plan or they have some sort of ascension that they want to do in the business. And when I spoke to you yesterday, like what it reminded me is even from the start, you optimize for the outcome. So you had a vision very early on.
Yes.
I think sometimes, and I see this a lot, particularly with smaller businesses or, friends I'm giving advice to, they're like, oh, well, I just want to focus on this one thing, maybe just random example. I'm a recruitment business and I want to eventually scale this and I want to create a platform. But right now I'm just going to focus on, just selling traditional recruitment. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. You have to get the money in.
Yes.
Like yourself, you had to get the money in, but you have to have a vision. Like you were always optimizing for the outcome, which was to get MMA or amateur MMA mainstream, but also, like you say, have the payment gateway and the rails for that.
Yes.
So you had that from the very beginning. So you had your cake and eat it too. You knew what you needed today. And I think for myself and any other founder or someone in business, you might be focusing on something today and you have to do that, but you have to optimize for the future.
Yeah.
And that's something you were very, very clear on. And also you knew it was going to happen. Like you knew, like if you said to me the day I met you, hey, Moby, we're going to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange one day, I'll be like, oh, that's really cool. And I'm really excited for you.
Yeah.
But like, would I have believed it? I don't know. But you believed it. Like you believed it in your bones. And I think that's a great lesson.
Yeah, I did. And look, I had the benefit of having a sort of a 20 plus year career in financial services and capital markets, and that obviously gave me some advantages when it came to raising capital and positioning the company for growth and positioning the story of the company to be one that was accessible to investors in the long run. And so you have to acknowledge where you're at now, and this is what we need to do in the course of the next few months for the benefit of the business immediately, but we also have to be doing the following things to make sure we're on a trajectory towards where we want to be. And I always believed this would be a business that was well suited to being listed, and it just so happened we were fortunate enough to walk a pathway that got us listed on the New York Stock Exchange, which, I think it's a wonderful achievement for a small Australian startup to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love hearing those Aussie startups, startup stories.
Yeah.
One of the things that strikes me, and I've seen this over the years, is there's a concept that you're very familiar with because you do this called Superhoss. The idea of think who, not how.
Yeah.
And, like I'll meet founders all the time and they're trying to do too much. I'm like, why are you... I was talking to a client of ours. He runs a $50 million business and he was trying to sort all this stuff out in marketing. I'm like, I won't say his name just in case he doesn't want me to, but I was like, dude, like, why are you worrying about this?
Yeah.
You should have a marketing manager worrying about this and you focus on your vision and your growth.
Yes.
You've naturally done that. Like you told me yesterday, you sought one of the best branding partners for the Alta brand and whatnot. Talk to us about the importance of Superhoss in your path, because it's easy to say, oh, Nick, and you are very smart and you've made a lot of wise choices, but it's also you who picked the Superhoss as well. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic because, and maybe one of the benefits of being an older stage founder or a more experienced founder is that I had the great fortune of working with a lot of very talented people in my financial services career, and I was always very comfortable at working with a bunch of people who had expertise and capabilities far exceeding mine in certain areas. So I was always, I'm inherently curious. I love working with smart, talented people. That really does, that's something that I get very excited about. And so as a consequence, when you've got an incredibly ambitious goal like I had, then you really do have to be focused on, who can help get me there. And it's a combination of factors, Moby. You need, you obviously need some great staff. You obviously need some, ideally some wonderful partners and talented and high profile partners. And John Kavanagh was an incredible building block for that.
Good leverage.
Enormous credit, afforded us huge credibility early and leverage. Then I've needed to have wonderful support around me at a board level, wonderful support when it comes to raising capital, great investors. You really have to be looking at a whole range of if you're going down my path, if you're running your own private company and you're either one day 10 years into the future you're going to trade sale it or sell it off to private equity or something like that, you don't have to be thinking about what I've had to, but
you'll still need to be thinking about super who's, but different type of super who's.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct. And so what are the, who are the people that you're going to need because you don't have that capability or bench strength within the organisation. And so, and thankfully, I think if one of my better skills is that I can articulate a vision really passionately, and that people buy into that and they believe it, and it's reinforced with outcomes and data. And as a consequence, then you get, because the best thing about getting great people around you is if they really buy into what you're doing, they'll go find other great people, whether they're investors or have you talked to this staff member referring this, and that's the leverage. And so, yeah, that's a very important part of not just hacking growth, but it's also a very important part of founder sanity. That you have to have wise, talented, amazing people to lean on and leverage, because it's otherwise incredibly lonely.
Oh, that really resonated with me. I think it's because it can be very lonely. You can often feel like you're the only one with these problems, but the deeper I get on this journey, I realize there is no business problem that I'm going through that no one else has gone through. Like, it just doesn't exist.
Nope.
There's always someone who's gone through your thing. And I think sometimes we think we have to do it alone because we're the founder and the buck stops with us. But I think that can be our Achilles heel.
Yeah.
A question for you: what's your advice on, like, say you don't have the means and capacity to have a board, and you might be earlier on in your journey, and to have that sanity, like you sort of say, like, what advice would you give to someone earlier on in their journey, understanding the concept of super who's, but they can't afford a board? What should they do?
Well, in my experience, there is just so many fantastic people out there who love seeing people having a go and will really lean in and help, whether it's an unofficial mentor capacity, come and have a coffee with me. I think something that young people should seek, I think something that I did pretty well in my career was built relationships with people 10, 20 years older than me, and asked them a lot of curious questions from which I learned a lot. And what you find is if you're doing that and you're asking good questions and you're leaning on people with far more experience than you, I've found overwhelmingly people are only too happy to help. And so it is important to find a pathway to networking into circles where you might have some more experienced people who are happy to have a coffee with you once a month. And even that as a release valve can be enormous. And, turning up to different industry things. Like I went recently, we're building and we're growing, but everyone thinks, oh, you're on the New York Stock Exchange. That's the end of your...
That's it.
You've made it. It's kind of like the opposite.
It's
the start. And, huge levels of scrutiny because your stock trades every day and, answering a huge amount of questions of investors and all those sorts of things, and lots more regulatory responsibility. So it's wonderful, and I'm really, really glad we are listed. But from the outside looking in, if people think, well, that's end game, it's not. It's kind of it's the new starting line. And so, but I got invited in by, we got a really big name accounting firm who are our auditors. They've been our auditors for 5 years, and they're kind of their fintech division. So arguably we're sort of a fintech of sorts. They invited a group of us in to do a roundtable, and it was really just founders and CEOs. And you sit back there, and it was like a group therapy session. people talking about what are their, and I left that going, okay, like, yeah, that just gave me real clarity and perspective that, you know, you're not alone. Everyone's going through the same stuff. And sometimes just hearing about other people's challenges is so cathartic, because you stop, even though you don't know them that well, you stop feeling so isolated. And then you hear some of the stories and they're like, you know, way worse than what I'm going through at the moment. And then you start falling into gratitude a little bit more easily, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of small business groups I know people can join, where they just sit around with different business owners.
Yeah, I'm part of CEO Institute. I know there's a bunch out there.
Find something like that.
I found that late. I feel like that's something you picked up on very early. Like, I'm 38 now. I only maybe a couple of years ago, and now I'm full into coaches and groups, and but you have to, like, if someone had told me that in my late 20s, it would have been so much better.
Well, hopefully, and hopefully young people, anyone young listening to this, like,
you don't have to do it your own, by yourself.
Seek those mentors early.
And
they're only too happy to help.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to jump around a little bit. So I want to talk about traits. You know, this is a really good one for, I guess, if you're already a leader or a founder, or you're someone who, because it's like the cool thing now to, you know, have a startup. It's almost like but it's not actually for everyone. Like, it really isn't. Like, let's be really real here.
It's for very few. Let's be really honest.
You have to be on the spectrum a little bit.
You have to be almost like a sadomasochist for the level of pain you have to endure.
Yeah.
If anybody, I said this on
sadomasochist.
Yeah, I've said this on you know, when I was on, you know, Mark Boris's podcast, and you know, Mark's been an investor and supporter, and what I love about talking to Mark too is that as big and successful as Mark's been, he is just such a advocate for small business owners, huge advocate for small business owners.
That comes from his roots.
Of course, right? Of course, you know, growing up in Punch Bowl and, you know, scrapping his way to where he got to, and enjoying enormous success through Wizard and other things like that. But at the end of the day, I think the thing that's made him so popular is his level of advocacy for Australian small business owners, seeing them as a, you know, a real cornerstone. And it's really helpful to hear that. And I remember saying on his podcast that you honestly, if I'd been told at the start of 2017 when I decided to do this full time, if I'd have been told how hard it was going to be, zero chance. I wouldn't have done it.
In hindsight, it's great you didn't know. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have done it, mate. Like, I'm not that brave, and I'm not that tough. But once you're in, you know, then, you know,
the journey forced you. It's kind of, it's evil but beautiful at the same time, because, like you say, if you knew, you wouldn't have done it. But on that journey, it's giving you that resilience, and I think that's when you find out what you're made of. So, you know, there's a couple of themes that you've shared with me already, like traits that, it's like, say you are deciding, okay, do I have what it takes? Yeah. And to be honest, there's actually I picked up on this a few years ago, because I was like, oh, everyone should start their own business. And I remember talking to my wife, this before RedPandas really took off, and she wasn't really involved. And my mum was doing long family daycare, and the scheme she was a part of, it's really ironic that they're called schemes, because a lot of them are schemes in the other sense of the word, fell over. And I said to my wife, I'm like, okay, we got my mum, all her mates, because she got all her mates into it. Yeah. We can just take them, right? Like, we can take them, start our own scheme. We'll get a clip off of everything. And I was pushing it and whatever. And then she just stopped. She goes, Moby, like, I'm like, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you? It's just there. There's a model. Like, I can't do it. I got my own business. It's like, Moby, like, not everyone's like you. Like, that doesn't interest me. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I've got people in my leadership, like, I love building this business, but I'm happy to get a wage, go home, clock off at 5 o'clock, maybe sometimes at 6, you know, but that's it. So there's nothing wrong with that. No. So this is not, I don't want to go too far down that path, but for anyone who's thinking of, okay, can I do it? Let's talk about some of the traits you need. There's some things you've already said. So the vision thing is really clear. When you speak to founders like yourself, you have to have a really big vision. Something you said to me yesterday, like it almost, you can make a risk of making it too small. You have to have a very big vision. You have to have supreme confidence. That's the second theme I picked up on. The third one is like the super who's. And you've also spoken about being curious. So that's 4 already. Like, what are other traits you need to go on a startup journey?
Well, I think some traits are learned too. Like, I'll tell you 2 traits that I really learned on this journey that I'm not saying I intrinsically had. One of them is risk taking, right? So, you
didn't have that natively.
No, I don't believe so.
Right.
I came out of school and I wanted to have ultimately have a really prosperous corporate career, and got into asset management and financial services and financial markets, and worked for over 20 years in that kind of career. And then just a range of circumstances led me to, okay, I'm on an extended gardening leave period. I've got some time. I've got some money. I'm fascinated by this. Maybe I can have a go at this and it'll work, right? But if I'd said back then, I'm doing this until we either make it or don't make it, that is absolutely not how I thought going in. I kind of thought, okay, I'll break it down into almost 6-month chunks. And then I was a lot more nervous about cash and capital and those things, back then. I mean, the level of risk I take now with my personal balance sheet and what I've done for the business, because I've got my chairman, a guy called Vaughan Taylor, who's just the dream chairman, has been with me step by step as we've raised capital and grown the company. But up until then, like, I was funding. I'm the only one who put their money where their mouth is and funded the company. And I always say, like, a really good metaphor for what makes a entrepreneur. I said, I think the best definition is when you've funded a couple of months of staff payroll and business expenses from the redraw account in your own mortgage, that's when you know. That's actually when you know you're a founder and you're a business owner and you're an entrepreneur. And so that took, big moments to do that. But then once you've done it, and you've done it so many, God knows how many times I've sort of done it. But so I think risk, you can learn to love risk. If you told me in 2017 I would have taken the risk I've taken now, again, I would have just said, no, you're on drugs.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So you can learn that. And then you have to have the most fierce and unshaken belief that the goal you're pursuing, that you can do it. Like, you don't want to listen to, the last thing you need is people who want to practically rational. Like, there is nothing rational about starting a business. What's the stats at 7 years? 96% have failed. So starting a business is inherently irrational. Okay, so you can't listen to rational people. You listen to smart people and you build a thesis of what I think we can do. But if you sit down with people who talk to you practically about what you're doing, you'll quickly lose any desire.
I think the problem is it can often be people who really mean well. Like your parents.
Invariably.
Friends, family, your wife.
Invariably.
Many of them mean well. Some of them maybe, there's a difference between naysayers and there's another, I can't remember. Like, some of them mean well and other people want to kind of drag you to their level because it's a reflection on their lack of risk or whatever you want to call it. But you have to be ready for that. Like, it sounds like a lot of fun, and now we can talk about it and smile, but those times are dark times. Like, it's not fun at that time. It's not like, you're not thinking then, this, maybe you are, okay, this will be a cool story to think about. You're thinking, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to make bills? Like, that is very dark place.
Yeah, it is. It is. But then you come out the other side of it, you find a way to solve for it, and you've just, I remember, a metaphor that, David Goggins has used when he talks about putting calluses on your brain. And he's referencing every time you do something hard, you just get a little bit tougher, right? We used to say, with the Warrior Training Program, every time you actually answer the alarm and get out of bed and get to the gym at 5 a.m. or whatever the case may be, it's a micro battle and you just got a bit tougher, right?
It's a vote of confidence.
So every time you get through something tough in business, it does give you, it stiffens your spine. It just makes you a bit stronger, and it happens gradually and consistently. And then all of a sudden you've banked, I've been in this 8.5 years or whatever now. And as a consequence, I'm unrecognizable when it comes to risk taking and those sorts of things, because you have to be to get there.
Yeah, man, God, that's so deep. So you've got that, right? So what else is there? Vision, confidence, superhoss, curious.
Well, one we've talked about before, and let's pick up on this, because I want to pay respect to founders and staff, people who join startups and prevail at a multi-year career at a startup. Maybe they move on for a promotion, a new opportunity, whatever. We've had some fantastic kids at our business who've put themselves through uni working for us, and now they've got their degree and they're going to go off into their chosen field. And I think anybody who commits a serious amount of time to working in a startup, they're unique people. And a trait that you have to have as a business builder, but certainly someone who wants to work with a startup, I always talk about the ability to deal into ambiguity. Like you can't, if you crave a highly defined job description, you are going to be miserable in a startup, like absolutely miserable. And I think it's important to say, I've said when I've interviewed people, my starting point is I don't think you know what you're getting yourself into, and I want to encourage you to think about not doing this. Because I'm going to give you the warts and all about what being in a startup is like, because the last thing I want for you to feel 2 months in is, oh my God, I got hoodwinked here. Like this is a madhouse, right?
Where's my job description and where's my day-to-day? You're going to be developing that yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, and you have to have the gumption to do that.
Yeah, and then you have to, what people love inside startups, when a staff member identifies an opportunity to improve a part of the business, and then they have a set of skills or experience that allows them to do it quicker. I think the great thing is if you're a good boss inside a startup, that you really give people a lot of autonomy to do that stuff. Nothing makes me happier, and I'm really blessed. We've got a small but fantastic team in Australia and globally who are just so good at being self-starters. They know what they need to do. The business has a very clear North Star, right? That's important. And of course, we focus on some macro targets around revenue, customer growth, all those good things, right? But nobody is going to tell you how to do your job. And they'll also say, okay, your job is broadly this, but there are degrees of freedom. And then if a spot fire pops up, we might need 3 people to jump off what they're doing now and jump onto that. And if you like that, if that, some people find that level of flexibility and dynamism like really exciting. They're the people who do well in a startup environment.
I think it took me a while to figure that out, because I find that exciting. And then I've had people who, and it wasn't, it was just diverging paths. There wasn't anything right or wrong with us or those people. Yeah. But you just sort of have different interests, and I couldn't understand it. Like, especially when we sort of really started to specialize. Like when we worked together, we were like doing full service everything, like even branding at one point. Yeah. And we're like, I don't want to do anything if I'm not going to be number one. Yeah. So like, okay, let's focus on CRMs and paid media lead gen and for them, and digital, just lead gen in general. Yeah. Doesn't matter where it comes from. But then there were people who couldn't go on that gen, and I just couldn't understand that. But it's taken me a while to realize like there are people who are not built for that fluidness. I had people like, I don't know what my job description is. Yeah. I'm like, well, we have outcomes, but that's all I've got. I can't give you the path to get there.
Yeah.
So
I can give you
the vision.
I'll give you a great example in our business. So our CTO, James Fleet, and James is kind of chief product officer as much as he is CTO. And when James helped us build the original payment gateway in 2017 and, invested in the business and stayed close. And then we got to a point where we raised some capital in 2021 where I could actually go, okay, well, now we're insourcing our tech. We're bringing on a proper, albeit small tech team. So James bought a guy called Dylan who joined the business, and Dylan, very, very, very deep on the tools, and really great background in engineering, supporting James, and all those kinds of things. Now, Dylan did the program. Like, in fairness to Dylan, and he'll hear this and love
Dylan
him.
Hare?
Sorry?
Dylan Hare?
No, Dylan Brennan.
Okay, yeah.
So,
sure.
So Dylan did the program. Again, someone you'd think is pretty unlikely to do the program, like a real propeller head tech guy.
Yeah, which is honestly 90% of people who do it.
Yeah. Did the program, had an absolute barn burner of a fight, lost his fight, but the kind of ones where there's no loser. Everyone was blown away. He killed it. Like his physical transformation, everything he did was amazing. And then that gave him another layer of understanding how special that product is, but then how that fit in a suite of products that we take to market, whether it's our Jiu-Jitsu Academy software, BJJ Link, whether it's our partnership with UFC Gym and putting people into their programs. And all of a sudden, we had a gap, and Dylan stepped up to jump out of, he's never left the tech team, but he jumped out of this senior role to actually lead sales for our B2C side, and has crushed it, and has done a lot better than some other people who were supposedly the sales experts, because he had deep subject matter expertise. He believed in the vision. He's a really smart, talented guy, but he's somebody who's thrived in our company because he gets an unsettling level of autonomy to execute, provided he knows what the key goals are, around revenue, customer growth, all those things. He'll then reverse engineer from that and build a plan and work with the team to execute on it.
Yeah.
And so I use him as an example because he has done more diverse stuff here than he's done in, the aggregate of his career prior to that. He's just got a demeanor and those personal attributes where he gets excited by a challenge and diversity of work and all those kinds of things. So I now think a lot more about how we're going to profile staff, psychologically profile them for their own benefit, to work out, are they going to be happy in such a dynamic environment, or do things come up where they'll have attributes or characteristics that indicate they're going to be more rigid, in which case I might love them in an interview, but if I see that profile, I'd say, I don't think you're going to be happy here. That's a big learning for entrepreneurs and people hiring staff, and asking them to come into an environment and work in a really unstructured and dynamic way.
Nick, we could honestly talk all day. Thank you so much for being so generous for your time. I want to cap this off by, what's one big piece of advice you'd give to anyone listening? I'll leave it quite broad, answer however you want. What's a big thing that we haven't discussed that you think is worth sharing?
Maybe this kind of speaks more to overall life advice. And as you know, Moby, like I'm 52 now. I've got my twins are in first year uni. My youngest has just started year 12, so he's 12 months from graduating school. And I think as a parent, you're kind of always wanting to impart upon your kids what you think is important to live a really full life. And I would say, like, don't shy away from hard things. Do hard things, because it leads to a level of self-satisfaction and confidence that it's not a veneer. It's not rooted
it's not self-talk.
It's not affirmations. It's that quiet, I did that, you know. And as hard as this journey's been for me, I do have moments where I go, I'm actually really proud of what I've done, and I think that has made me an even intrinsically more happy person. So I would say to people listening, take those risks, particularly when you're younger. You know, we've talked, that's a real Gary V thing. You know, when you've got no responsibilities, like, swing for the fences. I agree with that sentiment entirely. Take chances, put yourself out there, work as hard as you can, take risks, and whether it translates immediately to you know, kind of monetary wealth or otherwise, or even career recognition or otherwise, it kind of doesn't matter, because it sets you up with a level of belief and confidence that you can parlay into greater successes going forward. So do hard stuff and make yourself proud of yourself.
I love that. Nick, thank you so much. Where can everyone hear about what you guys do? Where should they go? What should they check out?
Yeah, so they should at Train Alta is our Instagram account for the program. They can also check out what we do at a company level on our website, mma.inc, so mma.inc. And most importantly, they should check us out. We trade shares on the New York Stock Exchange. There's plenty of places where you can check out how you can buy and sell shares. There's some great providers here in Australia. And we trade under the stock ticker MMA, which is incredibly cool. So check us out on the NYSE.
Awesome, Nick. Thanks for your time.
Cheers, Moby.
Thanks for listening to Inbound Buzz. Learn anything? Return the favor by spreading the word. Want to make your mark in digital? Need help with your digital strategy, inbound, and marketing automation efforts? Then visit redpandas.com.au and be sure to tune in next time for another Inbound Buzz hit.